All right, let's get started. Before we hop into the content, I want to give a shout out to ATB, Erwins, Louis, and Travis. You guys answered the calls. Saw you at Coach Hernandez's workouts at 9 a.m. Keep it up. Hopefully, I'll see you guys this week. And anybody want to join us tomorrow? See you there too. Also, shout out to Ansu, Hakobo, and Sanaya. I saw you guys killing it in Code Combat, and that's from Miss Lugo. So let's get into the content now. Lesson 13. So this week's goals are that students will be able to create classes in Python, create methods in Python classes, and instantiate objects in their code. Some of these words may sound foreign, some of them may sound familiar because we went over them a little bit last year. Hopefully, we're going to be able to take some time and go a little bit more in depth this time. Here's the code that you're going to get for your assignment for today. Check it out. Let's break that code down. As always, I try to break it down into parts. Here, we're going to break it down into two, which is the chore class and whatever is outside of the chore class. Essential knowledge. You got to know what a class is. So, keyword to create a class is class. It's essentially a blueprint for how we're going to be using those objects later on in our program. Question: what is the correct way to create a class named cars? Okay, moving on to the init function. So you're going to notice me saying function a lot when I really mean method. Method is really the technical term that you use in Python. However, they're basically interchangeable. You'll hear me use them for one another back and forth all the time. The init function, or I should say method, is the constructor that allows you to define what and how that object in the class looks like and what those parameters and values are. Cool. Another word for the init method is what is another word for method? All right, now self. The self parameter is a reference to the current instance of the class. So when we talk about parameter versus argument, before we're using them pretty much interchangeably, but this is kind of a key differentiator right here. An argument is something you put in as a user, and then the parameter is something that's already coded in. It's kind of how I think about that difference. But whenever you're using self, you're referring to the actual object itself. True or false? The word self must always be used to refer to the instance of the class. Hint, hint. Look it up. Okay, some common misconceptions. So, chore does not have parentheses after the name. Yes, you are defining a class, but unlike when you're defining an actual function, the chore does not have the parentheses. Also, keep in mind that init has two underscores in the front and in the back of it. So it's underscore 1, 2, and then again 1, 2 at the end. And also, self refers to the instance of the class, which is an object. All right, so how to read. I created a class named chore that takes in the name of the chore as an argument, then asks the user for the area the chore is done, any tools used, and a potential hack for the chore. So when you're putting in the hacks when you're trying this out, you can put not available. It's not important right now, but it will be later on. So just pay attention to how it is done. And there's no output here. Now let's take a look at outside the chore class. Here's the essential knowledge. To actually use a class, you must instantiate the object. Just means use the constructor in order to create an instance of the class. To instantiate a card object named card1 with no arguments, what would I type? In the line P1 equals chore, quote unquote, dishes, the word dishes is the value for which parameter? All right, common misconceptions. Make sure you understand how the constructor for the class works to avoid errors when using the class. Here we are using our chore constructor with our argument dishes. That's going to be for the parameter name inside of our constructor. So when I'm reading this, I instantiated a chore object with the argument dishes for the chore name. And then when we talk about output, remember what the initial code looked like? It's actually a bunch of inputs for all the other parameters that we're going to be needing. So for our output, the user will be asked for the area the chore is done in, any tools needed for the chore, and any hacks available to complete the chore easier or more efficiently. All right, what is the output for print c1.name? Finally, here is lesson 13. It's in Replit. Let's check it out. So after you've checked out the Edpuzzle, you're going to come to Replit. Your assignment for this week says objects 4.6 to 4.10. You're just going to follow along. You're going to comment on each line of this code here. For line 1, what does that do? Line 2, what does that do? Line 3, what does it do? And then so on, so on. Each line itself should have an additional comment with the exception of this comment that is already here for C1. Then 2, in the chore class, you're going to create a method called announce. When you call this function, it should print out the chore's name, the area that the chore is completed in, any tools needed to complete the chore, and any hacks you may have for that chore. For the example, I have one here. Check it out. Step 3, instantiate 3 different chore objects. So I already have dishes. You can add bathroom, you can add laundry, whatever chores you want to add, you can instantiate them. It's up to you. Finally, you're going to use the announce method in all 3 chore objects. So if you're keeping up with the C1, it can be C1, C2, C3.announce. That is all, friends. As always, check into those office hours at 10:30 and at 1:14. But before I send you off, make sure that you are actually submitting your work, complete the Edpuzzle, and your code. Those are the things that we use to grade in Blackbeard's Bootcamp. Finally, make sure you submit 2A and 2C if you haven't submitted them already. 2D will be due on Tuesday. Thanks for everything. Plus Ultra.